Just ahead on American Black Journal, remembering the legacy of Detroit's first black mayor, Coleman Young, plus a conversation on the problem of children changing schools frequently in Detroit. What are the consequences and possible solutions? Don't go away. American Black Journal starts now.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Detroit's first black mayor, Coleman Young, served 2 decades in the city's top post. This year would have been his 100th birthday. During his tenure, the mayor established the Coleman A. Young Foundation to help provide educational and career opportunities for the city's young people. Joining me now to talk about an upcoming fundraiser and the mayor's legacy are Kari Turner, who's the executive director of the foundation, and a man who knew the mayor very well, Marvin Beatty, who is the president of the foundation. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. So 100 years that he would have been alive if he were still alive now.
Yeah.
It's an important milestone.
It is, and it's actually, I think it's caught a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah.
Because of the way time moves, you know. But his birthday was May 24th, and the foundation is spending the entire year celebrating it in different fashions, and the event that's coming up on November 29th, featuring D.L. Hughley, is one of our major milestones. And I in many ways, I think it's a perfect way to end the year and to celebrate the mayor.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Marvin, you and I have had this conversation privately before about how well you knew him and the things that he did. But I have always sort of said that he's one of the most misunderstood figures, not just in Detroit, but maybe in American history. And depending on who you're talking to, you can hear about a really different guy.
Oh,
right?
without question. And he, I mean, a remarkable character, just all by itself.
Yes.
Just a remarkable character, and so often misunderstood because I think his delivery was always at a kind of a fever pitch. And I think that was based on his history, based on the fact that he had been through so many things. When you go back to going to Congress, I mean, just so many things that always challenged.
The House Un-American Activities
House Un-American.
Committee, the testimony he had to get there. Yeah.
Just, you know, the things that always challenged his blackness and his commitment to being recognized as a black man who stood for something.
Yeah. A lot of people equate that with
arrogance and hatred and bigotry,
racism,
and none of those things, because I mean it's very difficult for a black man with no power to be a racist. But but that's a story for another day. But you know, I mean, here's a guy who was committed to the city. It just happened to be majority black, and if it had been majority white, he would have been equally as committed. But so many times, because of so many things that were happening, and it was just the tone and tenor of what Detroit and the Detroit community looked like and felt like. And they had many people, white folks had abandoned the city, and were mad at the fact that they had to leave, but it was a decision that they made on their own. And Coleman defended the people in the city because he believed that they were people who committed for the long term. But his administration was always 50-50, always.
Yes. Always reflective of
inclusion. Inclusion, and even when the city was so far away from 50-50, he maintained that commitment, and at very key levels. So it was because he believed that fairness was the common denominator to a successful administration.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about what the foundation does, and before we do that, I should disclose that I'm a board member of the foundation. Always proud
to have you too.
To do that. But talk about the work that the foundation does.
Well, the mayor established the foundation in 1982 while he was still serving in office. And he gave us a simple charge, which was to identify Detroit youth who have college aspirations. We all know that he was not able to attend college, even though he was accepted. Because of his skin color. He never enrolled at the University of Michigan. So he wanted to pay that forward. And that's what we do. We award scholarships to qualifying Detroit students who not only want to attend college and need help getting to and through the university level, but who also have a commitment to the city of Detroit and a commitment to developing leadership. So we mentor them until they graduate from college. And we also have a youth development program, Real Skills, that helps them to get ready for post-secondary life. We all know that not every child graduates and goes to university, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a meaningful life after high school. So we help young kids to develop skills that are critical to the Detroit they live in today.
Yeah, that piece about sticking with the kids.
Absolutely.
Even after you've given them the money, that's really key, because college success is not just about funding. I mean, you need guidance, you need help. Sometimes you just need an ear to listen.
Somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
The wraparound service.
Yeah.
And that's been so much of an important part, and I think that's why our success rate has been so strong, is because of the relationships that extend beyond writing a check.
Yeah,
You know, money in your pocket is not always the answer.
Right.
And those kids have reflected that, and they've been dependent on the foundation, and even today, you know, they still reference back to the foundation as a place where they could find a comfort level.
And that was a really important part of his legacy, even before he left office, before he died. That this idea of moving people forward, and especially African Americans, in a way that they were not able to move forward for so much of his life here in the city,
was a key part, and I think that was the key factor to how he dispersed his dollars, because not only did he put $1 million at the Coleman Young Foundation for scholarships, he also put $1 million at Wayne State University to make sure that relationship, that connection continued. So it wasn't like this guy was just looking to flash of recognition, but his commitment to further education of young black kids or young kids in the city of Detroit was tantamount to all that he believed, that this is what will change all of this debate and all of this these issues that surround and he struggled with as the first black leader of the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I read an article the other day about this new class of black politicians that's getting elected around the country, and one of them was Garland Gilchrist, who grew up right here in the city of Detroit while Coleman Young was mayor. And I thought to myself when I read it, I was like, this is what he was trying to do. This is what he was trying to encourage and leave behind. And you look at someone like Garland Gilchrist, that's a really strong example of what was possible.
Well, and you know, I mean, such a powerful outcome. And certainly it is part of his vision that, you know, that we wouldn't just have local offices, that we would extend throughout the state and throughout the country, you know, in some very significant ways. And as he impacted the entire nation, Coleman was not a local mayor. He was a mayor.
He was a
national experience. And people from around the country and around the world have spoke favorably about his power, his authority, and his leadership.
The fundraiser, still tickets available for people?
There are still tickets available through Ticketmaster. So we're very clear that, you know, the mayor's legacy is one to be taken seriously. But we've also had an eventful year.
Yes.
And we really strongly felt that the community could use a laugh. And there's no more appropriate comedian
Right,
to reflect
for Coleman and
the
then,
mayor's intellect and his wit, but also his sharpness and his honesty than D.L. Hughley. You know, is a king of comedy. He's coming to town on November 29th. He's going to spend a little bit of time with our youth development program participants, those kids, and then at the soundboard at Motor City Casino, he's going to perform a complete comedy show, and those proceeds are going to benefit the foundation. So we're thankful to him for coming and hanging out with us. That'll be just the Thursday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we're going to crack our side for a good cause, man. What can I say? Have a wonderful time, a good night, and yes, tickets are still available at Ticketmaster. So please, we want to encourage everybody to buy
And
them.
those dollars are so important.
Yes.
So, you know, for those.
And every bit of it goes toward
Every bit.
this this idea of sending kids to college. Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to argue with the outcome.
Yeah, the
right?
outcome, you know, is outstanding. The little bit of money that we spend on our administrative roles is without question some of the lowest that you'll find.
Right, right.
Which only says that our commitment has continued to be young people. And how do we get as many young people to college and through college as possible? So this event is pure.
Yeah.
And it goes straight to where we want it to go and where these young people need it to be.
It's not just about young people. That makes it about the future.
It makes it, it is our future. Absolutely.
All right. Congratulations on the event, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank
for
you.
having us.
Appreciate it.
Just ahead, a look at how Detroit classrooms are disrupted when students change schools too often. But first, we continue our look back at this program over the last 50 years. Here's a 1988 Detroit Black Journal conversation between Mayor Coleman Young and host Ed Gordon.
Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
Nation's not ready for a black president. You yourself are saying that that's one of the reasons that you couldn't support him wholeheartedly.
I just didn't believe he could win.
But you also have stated, or at least it's been said you've stated, that the nation isn't ready to elect a black president.
That's why I don't believe he can win.
Okay,
I don't believe
this.
that there are enough white voters in America that are willing to vote for a black candidate for president.
You heard the same thing in '74, though, when you were running for
the
mayor.
mathematics are different. You see, there is no relationship. When I looked at the vote in '74, I saw that this city was divided 50% black and 50% white. And I knew and I believed that if I could stimulate the black voters to come out and vote, I could win. That's different from anybody aspiring to be president of the United States. The numbers there are 10% black and 90% white.
But why not just say, as you did, that you might think that Dukakis is a better presidential candidate, and leave it at that?
I said that too.
But why not just leave it at that?
Well, I had to give the whole truth. There had to be some reason for opposing Jesse. I believe that it's unrealistic to oppose Jesse. I mean, to support Jesse.
One other thing, and we'll go to the phone lines.
Yeah.
It has also been said by some that it's personal, that you guys just don't get along too well.
You know, you kill me, but with this hearsay.
Well, now you listen.
By whom has it been said?
There are occasions that you've come here and said it's said and it's said. I mean,
No,
we're just
when
talking
have I
back
come here and
room.
said it's said, it's said?
Okay.
You know, I don't deal in that.
All right, let me
I don't
ask
come
you.
off the
All right,
wall. I ask you not to.
I'll ask you. Is it personal?
Do you say that it's personal?
I'm asking. I don't know. Is it personal?
Well, of course it's not personal.
Okay. Okay.
I would love to be able to support a black candidate. I'd like to see a black man win for president. I do not believe it's possible. Now, my business is politics. I'm a professional, and I have to think by counting the numbers and not with my emotions. I understand the emotional attraction that black people have for Jesse Jackson. It's like a tide. It swept this nation. But we have to think with our heads and not with our hearts. You know, I think that the key thing for us in 1988 is to elect a Democrat as president who can present a program that will reverse the damage, the severe damage been done to this nation and to black people by Ronald Reagan.
Always always entertaining. 1 in 3 Detroit elementary students change schools every year. That alarming statistic was revealed in a special report by Bridge Magazine and Chalkbeat Detroit. The frequent movement of students leads to lower test scores, higher dropout rates, and difficulty learning. I led a community conversation about the causes and possible solutions to this problem at an event that was hosted by Detroit Public Television, WDET Radio, Bridge, and Chalkbeat. Here's a portion of that discussion.
All of the factors that educators need in order to take a school that's struggling and try to turn it around become significantly more complicated if the students that they're working with, that they're making progress with, then disappear. And then, when that, so the students who start the school year in September are not necessarily the same ones sitting down to take the state exam in the spring. And so that creates all kinds of really difficult, complicated problems, which is why we wanted to delve into this issue and look at the consequence and what it means for schools. And then we also looked at the causes, right? So we knew that people were moving. We had the research from Ben and Sarah showing the extent to which they're moving. 1 in 3 kids, elementary school kids, every year are moving. But we wanted to know, okay, why are they moving? And one of the things that Chastity and I did is we spent part of the year with 1 8th grade class at Bethune Elementary Middle School in Northwest Detroit and talked to each of the kids in the class. The average student in that class of 8th graders had been to more than 4 schools on their path to 8th grade.
The bottom line is, why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because, like Aaron said, it's not good for kids. Moving your kid from school to school to school is not good for kids. The scores show it, and I think that this discussion right now will help to inform people in Detroit and across the state. When you hear that Detroit has the very worst test scores of any school in the world, Craig, or at least in the nation, part of it is Detroit's decline, Detroit hitting rock bottom in the nation on the nation's report card, happened at the same time as this uber mobile student. It's part and parcel why students are performing so badly. They don't sit still long enough.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle is one way to look at this, right? Choices here. It's probably not going to go away. So how do we fix this? What are some of the things we could do that would directly sort of discourage the behavior that parents have become really used to in Detroit?
Improve the quality of the schools.
Okay.
I mean, that's
I can snap my fingers and do that, right?
Come on, Stephen. Snap your finger.
From a parent perspective, what's been your experience with kids moving from school to school during the school year and disrupting that consistency that's so important to learning?
Well, I have moved my children to 29 different schools.
Wow. 29. In what time frame?
I have 5 children. So from kindergarten to 12th grade.
And talk about that decision each time to say, we're in this school, and I think we've got to go somewhere else. What is it that brought you to that decision each time?
I was not happy with what was happening in the building. And when I tried to make change, it didn't happen. My children have gone to charter schools, public schools, private schools. They're all in the district now. But at some of the charter schools, I did not have the accountability. There were mismanagement of funds, and when I would question the board and the treasurer about it, I was told, don't worry about that. At one school. Another school, they changed management companies in the middle of the year, did not notify the parents, fired teachers, fired principals, and I just want the best for my children.
So from the charter arena, when at my district at UPA, when students move in the middle of a year, it really has an impact on the class. it's kind of seen as like, it's almost like the class is going through like a mourning period, like they're going through grief, because they're looking at it like, you know, it's a plate missing from the dinner table. Where is Shine? Why is Shine not here? Why did we not get a chance to say goodbye? And then on the receiving end, if I receive a student like maybe a month into school, it is rough because I have to get them acclimated. If they're not familiar with the UPA district, I have to not only acclimate them to the rigors of our curriculum, I have to acclimate them to the culture of our school. A lot of times it's kind of like getting them reintroduced to what school actually looks like, that this is a nurturing, caring, safe environment.
Dr. Vitti, I want to start with you. How big a priority would you say this issue is in Detroit schools, and specifically in Detroit public schools?
I think it's a reality that obviously we heard earlier that mainly teachers, principals, and even other students are dealing with constantly. I think when we talk about priority, it's more of a policy priority, because I think the solutions here are embedded in policy as far as what Lansing can do differently on a couple different fronts. One, and actually I think one step in the right direction is the creation of a new accountability system where we can see apples to apples how traditional public schools are doing and charters are doing in Detroit, so parents can at least get some information that is, again, apples to apples as far as standardized test scores, parent surveys, graduation rate, college enrollment, or students taking college and career-ready courses and how they're doing them. Those are just some factors to equalize the conversation, which I think is going to be important to inform parents when they make decisions that the grass is not always greener on the other side because they see a glossy pamphlet.
Are there sort of quickly accessible levers that you feel like can be pulled to really push this in a different direction, or is this a long-term?
It's you know, I agree. It's a short and a long-term situation. So on the education front, even looking at how schools are funded, I think is an opportunity to try to reduce the amount of movement. From the FTE period in October to where we are now, we've seen a 700 student increase in DPSCD schools alone.
Wow.
So that's 700 students that have moved into our system. So the way the funding structure works is there's two FTE counts. There's one in October and then one in the spring. But most of the funding is linked to the first count. So if we maybe equalize the funding where it's 50% in the first count, 50% in the second count, there's less of an incentive to move students out of schools during the first count to the second count. I think that is something structurally from a policy perspective that could help. And then obviously we've talked about this, is just better regulation of charter schools in general. With all that said, I think that there's a quality conversation and an ownership that we have in DPSCD. We've done things like standardized curriculum at the K level, we'll do that at the high school level. That'll help. Last point, outside of K-12, is this is also a socioeconomic issue. So if we want our parents moving less, there are school factors that can be addressed, but simple things like ensuring that families have a consistent, well-paid job with benefits leads them to live in one home in one area, some level of account for affordable housing, addressing heat, water bills are all factors that lead to parents to move from one side of town to the other because of survival issues, which then impact the school system and enrollment.
Yeah.
The first thing we have to remember is that there's no way that the school district can do it by itself. And this is why you have to have strategic partnerships. You know, I believe in purpose-built communities and promised neighborhoods and things of that nature, because it's not only the schools are your anchors, because that's your anchor institution and it always will be, and you have to have strong traditional public schools in your neighborhoods to be able to create that. But then you want to make sure you also have businesses, you have educational programs for adults, that you have food security programs and housing and things like that can help bring some level of stability. I think the other condition that everyone would have to start to agree on is that these are all our kids. When I was superintendent, on paper, we may have had 76,000 students. By the end of the year, I was serving 82,000 kids. So it didn't matter whether, again, what sector that the kids were coming from. They're all our children. And overall, if you looked at literacy rates, transiency rates, absenteeism rates, I believe one of the speakers said earlier, this is an issue that affects all Detroit children. And so it behooves us to start looking at this as a collective issue and being much more intentional. And so things like community schools, some people might think, oh, that's fluff and that's just a nice little pie in the sky. But you can serve, again, as a superintendent, United Way had 4 community schools. We had another 6 agencies that provided those services to another handful of schools. And it's all around the wraparound services that families need. I think the other piece is, let's put programs in that attract people. So, Dr. Vitti's brought art back and music back into these programs.
You can see more of this very important conversation at AmericanBlackJournal.org. It's also where you'll find information on today's guests and a calendar of upcoming events. Thanks for watching. You can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
As American Black Journal looks ahead at the next 50 years, we want to hear from you, the viewers. Tell us what you think of this program and what you'd like to see on future episodes. Visit AmericanBlackJournal.org to take a quick survey and share your opinion. Thank you.